Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch. Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Hello, welcome to Wigan Watch, and this is a slightly different Wigan Watch, although it's not unique. I'm going to do an interview, this time with a former councillor and former mayor. So, what's been going on in Wigan other than that? Well, we'll find out afterwards. This is more important. So, let's have a chat, shall we? So here I am with my special guest, former councillor Winstanley, who is not only a former councillor, but a former mayor.
Yes, I was Mayor of Wigan from 2010 to 2011, Tony. That's absolutely right.
But this is where I get confused. Wigan is very strong Labour. You were the mayor, you're not Labour. How does that work?
Yeah, well, you make a very good point. We've only had two Conservative mayors since 1974, when the Metropolitan Borough of Wigan was formed, and I was the youngest holder of that position as well. In essence, the Mayor of Wigan is decided by the full council, so it doesn't have to come from the ruling group, and I know many other local authorities do have a rota system that allows different parties to be mayor. But in 2010, I did have the opportunity to become Mayor of Wigan, which was a great honour, and I thoroughly enjoyed the role. And it's really above party politics as well, and that's the bit about it that I liked, about understanding the local community, seeing all those events that go on day in, day out. You know, we've got great work that goes on in all our communities across the Wigan Borough, and to actually see that firsthand and go there as mayor, as the particular guest, was a great honour and a great achievement. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
My big question is, how heavy are those chains?
They are quite heavy, Tony. They are quite heavy, and after you've been wearing them for a number of hours, you are pleased to remove them. And I always enjoyed that, because that's when I lost weight at the end of the day.
It was a workout then.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you've been a councillor. You stopped becoming a councillor a couple of years ago due to a minor defeat of like 30 odd votes in an election, which just shows how tight the voting can be. But how long were you a councillor for?
So I first got elected in the year 2000, and in that year I was the only Conservative councillor on there, and I think we had two other non-Labour councillors out of 72. So as you can see, that was a pretty big number of councillors who were Labour at that particular point in time. So I did from 2010 till 2011. And then I was off for 5 years, and then I got re-elected in 2016, and then came off in 2022. And as you rightly say, I lost by 31 votes.
Which is why we always say to people that it's important you vote. People often say that, I mean, this would be the same for a general election as well, I suppose, but if you don't vote, then your vote won't count, because people say, well, what's the point of voting, because my vote won't count anyway. But obviously, if like 40 people had voted for you, who wanted to vote for you but thought it won't make a difference, you'll still be a councillor now.
Absolutely. I think that demonstrates how important voting is. And when people see like big majorities and things like that, they think, oh, well, I can't really have an impact on that. But as you rightly say, because particularly in local elections, we don't have big turnouts. You know, they'll vary from 33%, and that's in some of the better wards, to down into the teens in some of the wards, you know, that there's really little voter engagement. So I would really encourage people to actually go out and vote, because, as you rightly say, if you don't vote, your vote won't get counted. But if you do go out and vote, it might just make a difference, and it does make politicians sit up and notice. That's the one thing we know about democracy and voting.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I've stood a couple of times as a local councillor in Independent, and it's you do gain the attention of the opposition, which is not the opposition; they are the Labour Party. And in my case, and it was interesting. Yeah. But the council now has got a few more Conservative councillors on it, and quite a few independents as well. So it is becoming more diverse, less of a
less of Labour total dominance. But you know, let's be honest, they still have a massive majority on that council. And I think people don't realise sometimes actually how important it is to have different councillors on there from different political parties, because yes, full council meets every 8 weeks, and as we saw last week, they set the budget, they make certain appointments, like appointing the mayor and the deputy mayor, they appoint all the committees for the year. But when you appoint the committees for the year, those have to be politically balanced, and those people can only come from elected councillors. So the more opposition people you have elected onto the council means that you've actually got more people on the scrutiny committees, which are the ones that examine what the council's doing, that can hold the officers to account and hold the cabinet members to account, because they're the ones politically responsible. And they're the ones you can dig into a little bit of the detail of what's happening, you know, across the borough. So actually having more opposition councillors on there is actually good for democracy, because we get more accountability, more accessibility, and it actually shines a light on what's happening, you know, in the council. And sometimes where the council is failing, you do get Labour councillors sometimes, you know, asking those difficult questions. But they're few and far between, because they tend to go along with whatever the report says and say how wonderful Wigan is. But actually, we need different voices on there asking those difficult questions in a responsible way. But that actually serves the people of Wigan much, much better than just sort of like nodding everything through and asking no questions.
So, for example, I mean, the galleries is a big thing at the moment. Obviously, it's been demolished now. We're waiting for the start of the rebuild. But if there were more people, opposition people, that were on the planning committees, for example, they could have questioned more the situation that was going to occur in the future. Whereas I think at the time there probably wasn't many people on there, so it would have just got voted through by sheer numbers of Labour members. Is that the kind of gist? I mean, I've probably simplified it, but that's the kind of gist.
That is in essence what would happen. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because the more people are that ask the questions, then the more you can start to see what happens. And I don't know if you remember, Tony, you might have been in the public gallery. I think it was when we had the council meeting. I think we was meeting down at the Edge.
I was there for that one
during COVID, and I put forward a motion that we needed to pause the Market Hall development, because we've got that 5,000 name petition of those people that said we need to pause this, we need to go back to the drawing board, we need to have a look at it, and that was just simply waved aside. Because of sheer numbers of Labour councillors, and they didn't even want to debate it. And we've had a couple of those instances where they just don't want to debate things, and those just get pushed to one side. So if you've got more opposition councillors on there, you've actually got much more of a say, much more of a chance of actually trying to influence some of this debate. Ultimately, whoever's got most numbers wins, but actually people being represented and asking awkward questions is really important, and that's what happens in Parliament. It should happen more in local government as well.
To be fair, I've said for a while now that in order to have a good national government, and therefore councils as well, you've got to have good opposition. And if you haven't got a good opposition, which I would say Labour at the moment is not a great opposition to the Tories nationally, they're very weak. But if you haven't got the numbers like we've got in Wigan that are against, it's exactly the same situation. If you need more people who are not Labour, regardless of whom they are and from what party they are, be it, you know, your Conservatives or Lib Dems or even Independents, like Maureen O'Byrne, who I interviewed recently as well. More people like that will push the council to think before they bulldoze things through. That's the whole point, isn't it? Yeah. It's not like anyone's going to say that overnight the Labour council is going to disappear and it's going to be a Tory council or an independent council or a coalition or anything like that. That's not going to happen in the next, few years. That could happen over time, but not initially. Yeah. So what you need to do is build up the opposition so that they can question what's going through, and hopefully, maybe even stop things like the cinema being built, stuff like that. And that's, I don't know whether it would. It's something that people, like you say, I didn't know this was a thing. It's surprised me that they have to have people on from oppositions on these committees to actually look at stuff. I thought it was just Labour, waving everything through. Yeah. It was like Labour buy the galleries, Labour decide they want to knock down the galleries, Labour decide they want to build this complex thing that they want to build. So Labour's asking Labour to do this, and Labour agrees that they can do it, and then Labour does it. Yeah. But there's a little bit more to it than that. There will be people within who maybe not have the numbers at the moment who could have said, no, hang on a minute, what are we doing this for? Like you said, you brought that motion up yourself at the Edge. Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I asked similar questions, when we bought the galleries for circa 8 million, whatever it was, why have we done that? Because we were then losing money on it in terms of rental and stuff like that. Because if you remember, it was a while, probably 2 or 3 years before actually anything started to happen. Yeah. So I was asking questions at the Audit and Governance Committee in terms of what was happening regarding that.
that, but more people asking those difficult questions and broadcasting that actually then shines a light on what's happening. And we've seen it time and time again with things, because it's easy when you've got sort of like a small number of people to brush them to one side. Once you start to get more and more numbers questioning things, that becomes a little bit more difficult. And, you know, I want to see more Conservative councillors on Wigan Council. That's my job.
Yeah,
you know,
obviously.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I just think that if we've got more opposition voices on there, I just think that's good for democracy, because if you look at Labour's vote in Wigan and the proportion of councillors they've got, they're overrepresented.
Yeah.
You know, Conservatives are underrepresented. We've got 2 seats, and we will at least get 20. If you took this across the whole board of Wigan, we'd probably get 20-25%. We've not got 20-25% of councillors. So, and I'm not making a pitch for PR here.
I'm going to say it's just proportional representation through the back door.
I'm not making a call for that, but I just think that there's a lot more voices in Wigan than just Labour voices, and they don't always get heard. And I want those voices to be heard, because it's good for democracy, it's good for the town ultimately, and that's good for people.
Yeah, and I've mentioned Maureen O'Byrne. Like I say, I had a chat with her similar to this a few weeks ago. I've also hopefully got a chat lined up with another independent councillor, and hopefully he will again shed his view of what's going on in the council. Obviously now you're viewing it from the outside,
Yeah.
but it'd be interesting to see where he comes with that. The galleries, though, it is a strange one, isn't it? You go to many towns now. I mean, I've been to Crewe, I've been to, weirdly, Nuneaton, don't ask, and I've been to recently Bolton as well, because they're starting. We're kind of in the middle. Crewe is ahead of us by about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
We're in the middle, and Bolton's behind us by 2 or 3 years. It seems all the towns seem to be doing the same thing. Now, we all admit that something had to be done with the galleries. And we all admit that, you know, retail is not what it was. This change has been accelerated by COVID and the internet. Probably more COVID in the last couple of years, because people have got used to staying at home because they had to. And they've been ordering online, and they've kind of kept doing that. But we need retail spaces, and we seem to be losing it. We seem to be losing parking spaces as well. So generally, town centres that are being demolished and rebuilt, it seems to be a trend, is it?
It does appear to be, but I don't always accept the narrative that it was a decline and it was always going to happen. I think we could have, or the council could have been much more innovative, you know, to try and sort of like stem that tide to start off with, because it is only over the last couple of years. And when we say people aren't going out to shop or they don't like going to shops, I don't see that, because if you go to Robin Park, it's actually rammed. You can't get on the place or get off it. And there's more and more shops going on there and less car parking space. The council appears to have had a policy of actually wanting to drive people away. You know, I was raising the issue about car parking charges years and years ago, that they should be more flexible, that they should be looking at doing shorter periods. So if you wanted to come in for an hour or two, you could actually do that. So it was much easier to nip into a shop, do some shopping and then go out again. They didn't accept that, and they tried to tie people into staying in the town centre for longer and all that sort of that kind of stuff, and eventually just drove people away. You try and negotiate your way around a car parking machine in Wigan, and you need an absolute BA honours degree. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can't put cash in it, you know. So they've actually made this much more difficult. This wheeze that they've got about free car parking at weekends, well, all that does, it just allows people that work in the town centre to be able to park free all day. You'll have to declare an interest in that, Tony, when you get elected onto the council. But for me, we should be doing it in a slightly different way, because if I come into Wigan in my car and I can't park up, well, I'm not going to come in your shop and buy anything. I'm not going to any other shop. So again, I tried to point that out to them, and it just fell on deaf ears, because they always know best and they won't listen to any other ideas. So the only way we can make them take notice is getting more people on there. So I don't think it's inevitable. And if you go to Reebok, you know, the number of people from Wigan that shop in other boroughs and districts, Charlie, you know, people go to Ormskirk. So why are we so poor at it, and why are we so bad? And we've actually run the white flag up here, I think, with the proposals we've got for the town centre.
Which are,
it's, and you know, look at the market hall now. Again, it's like the labyrinth trying to find it. You know, you need a ball of string, you know, to get from the market hall back into Wigan town centre. Again, I tried to push them to lower market hall rents right at the beginning of this. Oh no, we've gone as far as we can. Then suddenly, after I came off the council, they decided they were going to do a bit more with it. But actually, it's dead. It's absolutely dead
It's
now.
a tragedy.
And they've killed it.
Yeah,
they have killed it with the policies.
You know, you had Redmond's, they've been trading for over 100 years. You had the newsagent guy, he'd been there, his father and himself had run it for 60 years.
Yeah.
You had the key cutter guy outside, he was one of the ones who was interviewed when the original market hall was demolished. And, you know, okay, he was ready for retirement anyway, but he couldn't sell his business because it had been, well, basically taken away from him.
Yeah.
And it is a shame that that's happened. And you question, what has Wigan done differently? And I don't think Wigan's done a huge amount differently, but what they've not done is they've not focused on the heritage.
Yeah.
And you go to Charlie's a good example. They've built, I don't know, probably in the 70s or 80s, this little like precinct thing at the top near the dual carriageway.
Yeah.
But they've kept the majority of the town centre as was from Victorian times. So if someone from 100 years ago got dropped in the middle of the town centre, they know where they were.
Yeah, yeah.
If someone got dropped in Wigan, you know, like from 20 years ago, they may not know where they are.
No.
Because things change that much, and I think sometimes you can overdo it. And, you know, look at Bury. You know, they go on about the black puddings and all that kind of thing, and people get on coaches to go to Bury Market because of the black puddings. And then they use the market as well. And Wigan seems to have kind of, you know, with pie eaters, why don't we do something with pies? Wigan Casino, prime example. To be fair, Wigan Council last year embraced it more, and I give them praise for it. They did the little museum thing in the old W.H. Smiths. They had the exhibition on the marble area. So they did embrace Wigan Casino, which was the first, I think.
Yeah, they have, but it seems to be a bit piecemeal. They don't seem to have a coordinated, joined-up approach to it. And if you take Bury as the example of the Bury black pudding and all the rest of it, you know, we've got loads of things that over years they could have actually utilised as a bit more of a novelty of why
Uncle
people
Joe's meatballs and stuff like that
could
as well.
come here and stuff like that. So again, I think we've had a lot of missed opportunities, and I think what we've gone for with this redevelopment, I mean, let's not forget, when we bought the galleries, or when the council bought the galleries, they didn't have a clue what they were going to do with it. They had no plan. They had no plan, but they wanted to stop it falling into disrepair or disrepute or whatever it was. So they probably bought at the top of the market, and actually, so if we'd have waited a couple of years, they could have actually picked it up at a cheaper price. Yeah. But apart from that, the fact of the matter is they didn't have a clue what they were going to do with it, and all they're going to do now is knock it down, and all we're going to have is a load of apartments. And we're now turning this into some kind of destination that people are going to come for a meal and play crazy golf and might go to a cinema. But we've already got a cinema at Romney Park, which is reopening. So why are they going to come into the town centre? You know, and I was told by the Beijing Construction Group and City Heart, who announced this, they had these names that had signed up to it, all these big chains that were going to come. Well, okay, when are you going to announce them? Oh, that will be soon. I've been off the council for 2 years, and we're still no nearer to finding out what this great plan is, apart from, you know, crazy golf and a multimedia centre or whatever it's called.
Climbing wall.
Don't forget that.
And the bowling.
Yes, that's right, yeah, because we've not got a bowling alley.
No. No, I mean, one of my arguments, and if you've been watching Wigan Watch, I think you've seen a few of them, the bowling alley it's doing actually quite well, apparently, particularly at the weekends, but it's got free parking.
Yeah.
The cinema didn't do that well, ended up shutting down. It's got free parking. It's now reopening with a 3.5 million investment, and hopefully will do well. I'm not a cinema goer myself, but I appreciate that the cinema is an experience, particularly good for families and, you know, that kind of thing. And people have been travelling out. But to build ones in the town centre where there's, as we've already spoken about, no parking, and certainly no free parking. You know, would you want to bring your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, nephews into the town to watch the latest Disney cartoon, and then come out on a miserable, you know, November night at 6 o'clock, and pitch black, pouring down with rain, and you've got to walk however far to the car with your kids?
If you can find a car parking space.
Yeah. And you've got one down the road. where literally the car park is outside and they've even built the EV points. Okay, that's another thing. I'm not a big EV fan, but you know,
You and me both.
it just seems weird that that's what they've gone for, and it also seems a lot of expense as well, because I can't imagine a company paying to have this complex built unless they get ultimate ownership of it and the land and everything that goes on within it.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't strike me as business sense that you're going to build something that, I mean, the cinemas are dying. People go to the cinema less often. You know, everyone's got streaming services now.
Yeah.
It just seems like I got told that people who think like me are dinosaurs. And I come up with this, why don't we have a nice square, you know, where instead of building this hotel and this food block thing, have a nice big square. We can have celebrations there in the summertime. You can meet your friends. You can have a butty, a pie, that kind of thing. And it won't cost anything to maintain. But the problem is they won't make any money from it because there'll be no business rates and no stuff like that. But you've got to pay one off with the other.
But you won't have any business rates if you've got all your shops have shut anyway because they've driven everyone out of the town centre. Look at Wigan town centre now. There's no reason to come in, apart from this great shop.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say.
There's no, but you're struggling to find a reason to come into Wigan town centre. Now I want Wigan town centre, I want Ashton town centre, I want all our town centres to do well. But we've been let down by a lack of political leadership and a lack of vision. And they've got no one else to blame. They've been in power since 1974. So we can't blame anyone. We can't even blame the nasty Tories, which I know they like to blame a lot. But the fact of the matter is, they've been in charge. They've got to own it. They've now embraced the scheme, which is pretty lacklustre. And actually, I worry if it's going to deliver. I worry about if they got the money to actually see it through. How much is it going to cost us as taxpayers ultimately to see this through? And what are these companies getting out of it? Again, we don't know. And you know, I really want that new market hall to work, but who's going to go into it if all the existing traders are out? Now, when I was having those meetings with market traders a few years ago, they always had this theory that they actually wanted a clean canvas, that they didn't want anyone moving across from the old one into the new one. And I thought at the time, well, that can't be right, can it? Because surely you want people to just go from one to the other and transfer across. Yeah. But the more you sort of like look at what's happened, the more you think, well, was that the plan all along? I don't know.
Like the car park, not car park, car park.
But yeah, exactly. So where's that? So I don't understand what the plan is because they seem to have just made a total mess of everything. It's a bit like when they tried to bring in a new contractor for Hay Hall, and then we had to take them to court and cost, you know,
a lot of money,
and we don't exactly know what that figure is yet. And then they bring in a new levelling up bid, and they get 20 million quid off a Conservative government, by the way. They don't really mention that quite as much. They get 20 million quid off the government to level up, and that's their project for Wigan. You know, couldn't we have thought about other things for Wigan Town Centre? They've also had levelling up money as well for the galleries, by the way, because thanks to the government, you can see the sign. Yeah. Again, they don't talk about that much, do they? They talk about how much
levelling down, though.
Well, that's what they've done there. Yeah. They always talk about what the governments have cut. They never actually talk about what the governments have actually given them as well, which I always find quite ironic and strange.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what politics is like, isn't it? You don't praise the opposition for anything. You know, even if they are giving you something to help you.
Yes.
But they'll certainly criticise that, you know, council budgets have been cut and all this kind of stuff, and we can't fill the potholes anymore. We can't do this. Yeah. Well, they can spend 20 million, like say, on Hay Hall. Hopefully, that will get finished.
And let's hope it turns it into a massive jewel in the crown again, which is what it should be. And I want it to succeed, but you know they've not got a good track record in delivering on things, I'm afraid.
I may have mentioned that in previous Wigan Watches. One thing that is going quite well by the looks of things is Eckersley Mill, which is, as far as I can make out, completely privately funded.
Yeah.
And the actual main mill itself, they're building what looks like a terrace area or maybe a penthouse or something on the top of it. And they've got all these plans. They've opened up the little restaurant, which is getting rave reviews. And it just seems that, you know, that is a good thing that's happening in Wigan. And obviously it's going to spread out over the old sites, and they will build other buildings, a bit like they've done around the other mill, Trenchfield Mill, with the apartments and everything. Yeah. And that looks really, really good. And I would sooner live, if I was looking for somewhere to live, on that site than I would overlooking the old gas showrooms.
Yeah.
You know, it is a peculiar choice.
Marketing policy, to say that we're going to build these in Wigan Town Centre. And all these people are going to then get all these jobs. Oh, the other thing is, were the people, are they commuters, or are they actually going to get jobs in Wigan? Because that's the other bit. Do we not, should we be encouraging more homegrown businesses as well? And particularly, you've highlighted a really good point there in terms of when the state gets involved in stuff, it doesn't always go well. But if you get private enterprise involved, it tends to go a lot better. So actually, what we should, so what we should be doing, what we should be doing is actually releasing the shackles off private enterprise and allowing them to deliver these things with actually some incentives, rather than giving it to local government to do the sort of like their pet projects and things that they want. Actually, perhaps we should have injected a bit more cash into the private sector to actually enable them to actually put rocket boosters under stuff. And actually, I think we'd make much more progress like that. Give them some tax rates, give them some incentives to actually take these things forward.
I'm going to say they were quite proud last week, saying that they'd got this contractor from Warrington to do some works on the rebuild and everything. And I'm like, well, they're local-ish. But it's not what I was expecting. I was expecting, the whole point was it was going to be local people working on the demolition and on the build. Now, I appreciate these are specialist jobs and maybe we don't have the people here, but I spoke to one of the young lads on the demolition site fairly early on, and he was the only lad from Wigan. Right. Everyone else was either from Liverpool or Manchester.
Well, that's another thing that we promised right at the beginning of this, that there's going to be all these local people employed on this project, and all those great promises and things that were promised at the time. But a bit like Wigan pie crusts, those promises are easily broken, aren't they?
Brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I think generally, I think the state of the town centre is the main thing that people are concerned about. But I think that is stretching out as well to other places, other town centres as well. You look at Ashton as well. They've got 6.6 million again for a levelling up scheme that they should be doing sort of like work on there. The council just announced a consultation the other week, and I went online to actually do that consultation, and it was pretty poor. I'm not quite sure of the questions they were asking. I'm not quite sure what information they're going to get out of it. I hope that they're not just going to turn Ashton Town Centre into a load of cycle lanes and footpaths and stuff like that, which seems to be the go-to position of the council.
Always strikes me as ironic that people are being forced down the route of having to buy electric cars over whatever period of time, depending on what government's in, I suppose. Yet councils, not just Wigan Council, but other councils, because I drive around the northwest quite a bit, are just building these cycle lanes and restricting the traffic. It's like, well, electric cars can't go on cycle lanes, so why don't they build, where feasible, bus lanes, where cycles can use them, buses can use them, taxis can use them, motorbikes can use them, and maybe electric cars can use them as well. And that might encourage people to do it. I don't agree with electric cars, but this is the way we're going for the time being. Let's encourage rather than discourage people, because the number of times you get stuck in traffic kind of coming in or out of Wigan, that doesn't help the situation.
No.
With people trying to come shopping or anything like that. Never mind parking spaces. You've got to get into the town centre first.
To start off with, that's right, And then finding your car parking space is an art in itself. And then having to find somewhere where you can go and spend your money is the final bit of that triangle. That
there's a great shop in the Grand Arcade.
Come down here, get your vinyl, get your DVDs. They're all on sale.
But no, it's been fascinating having a chat with you.
Great.
And, hopefully we can do this again, and we'll keep a progress on what's going on.
I think we should do this on a regular basis, Tony. Let's keep an eye on what's happening in Wigan across the borough. So thank you for inviting me in today, Tony. It's been a great pleasure, and I look forward to having a catch up again in the very near future.
Yeah, maybe a pint or two.
Indeed.
That's it from this Wigan Watch. I was going to show you some stuff that had gone on in Wigan, but I'll be honest, there isn't anything. So I'll do that on the next Wigan Watch. Thanks again to former Mayor Whinstanley for making the time and effort to get here and speak to me. And all being well, I will see you again next time. Until then, goodbye.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch. Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.
Wigan Watch.